Well, Nate Fair, thank you for joining me today. I'm always excited to have someone else say, "Hey, this really works," other than us, because we're biased. And Sten is only one of thousands of advisors that have learned this and are implementing that we've had contact with. And so, I love conversations like this, Nate, because it encourages other advisors that, hey, I can do this too. And so I'd love for those listening to find as many connection points with you and your story as possible. So let's just start with where you are, how long you've been in the business, and how you describe sort of your business today to people who are asking about, what do you do?
Yeah. I've been in the business for 24 years now. But as an advisor for just the last 5, and have owned my own company. It'll be 3 years on February 1st. So, still relatively new back into the financial advising side of things. I was a wholesaler for the vast majority of the previous part of that 24 years tenure. As far as how I would describe my business, when somebody asks, what do? I help business owners pay less in taxes and feel comfortable about their financial decisions. And that's really as simple as it is. But when we dive into it, obviously we have to, what's involved behind the scenes. But that's what I do. And I do that for a select group of people. There are 12,000 financial advisors in the state of Wisconsin. There are 6.5 million people in the state. There are plenty of clients to go around, but I want to work with that business owner in southeastern Wisconsin. That is second generation, third generation business owner, and or a business that's closely held, owner operator type company. So that's what my niche is. That's where my focus is.
Okay, let me ask you about a specific word you use, because it could to some people be sort of a throwaway, but I think it's pretty beautiful. Like you hear the word and you're like, that is perfect. Do you know a word I'm going to ask you about? What do you do?
No, but I'm excited. I'm excited to hear what it is.
Comfortable. I think you could use confident as well. But the context of that, so people don't have to rewind, is, by the way, I feel like I'm aging myself when I say rewind, because I'm envisioning like a VHS tape, and it's like, or my tape. Anyway.
Sorry, we're about the same age. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a lot easier now to rewind.
29.
But it's the idea that you help business owners pay less in taxes, and is it the phrasing, feel comfortable about their financial decisions? Is that the wording?
Yeah. So I have a kind of a sub tagline. It's on my website, and kind of share it with people that clarity is confidence, confidence is trust, and trust is everything. So
let's slow down. I love it. So let's break it down. What's the first part of that?
Clarity
is
confidence.
All right. So clarity, if you're clear about something, you're more confident about it. Okay.
Yep. Confidence is trust. When you have a habit or a history of being clear and confident about decisions, it starts to build trust in the process and in the teamwork. And then trust, obviously kind of trumps everything. Trust is everything. Without trust, you can't make good decisions. Without trust, you can't, every little setback is seen bigger than it actually is.
Yeah. I'm thinking of, the market goes down a little bit. Do you trust it? Or your spouse makes you mad. Do you trust them? Right?
Yeah.
Your employee doesn't have the best performance or makes a mistake. Do you trust them? Right?
Mm-hmm.
You put on your seatbelt because you trust it, so there's a lot to that. So you're very honed in on that. And I love the way that you did those numbers. I would encourage folks to also consider maybe mathematically considering, how many advisors are in their state and how many people there are, and get their heads wrapped around the abundance of that. So tell me about, what do you think prepared you in your years of, that's an interesting track of wholesaling, and like, what prepared you to have people pay you for your time and ideas?
I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My stepdad owned a business. My aunt and uncles owned businesses, grandparents, several generations back. So the language, the philosophy, the mentality of being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, I can actually trace back to when I was 8 years old. And I remember the specific event, and we can get into that if you'd like. But I knew that this is what I wanted to do from a very young age. And I feel like the time as a wholesaler showed me a whole lot of what not to do.
Tell me more about that.
As a wholesaler, I got to know, say, 11,000 of the 12,000 advisors in the state over a 15-year career. I got to meet advisors from every major broker-dealer, independent, RIA, wirehouse, et cetera.
Right.
And it was far more frequent than I would ever admit or feel comfortable admitting. When the conversation ultimately turned to what is in it for the advisor. Not what does this product do for my clients? How do I explain this? It was ultimately, how much do I get paid on this? And are you going to blow me up? You know, it was kind of the conversation. So from a behavioral psychology behavioral finance, behavioral psychology standpoint, it was interesting to see where the motivation of the vast majority of people in our field laid. But also the ones who were different, stuck out like a sore thumb, because they constantly ask good questions about the feeling, how we explain this, what is the end result, when does this not work, things like, questions like that. So just learning about people and learning about the business, learning about the restrictions that different firms and different types of firms offer, or have on their employees was part of it. But my time, how do I put this? The things that we're responsible for, it's you can't even number it, right? I mean, if you just go through the ideas list, I mean, there could be 100 things there that we have to be.
As an advisor, you're saying the amount of specific things that you are responsible for, sort of knowing something about.
Correct.
All the nuances are almost countless, right?
Correct. And as a wholesaler, it's basically your products and your competitive products, and that's it. So I had a lot of free time, and I spent a lot of time delving into behavioral psychology, and topics that kind of revolved around how people think, how they make decisions. I love the investment decision filter, because of that, right? Because you're instantly setting people up with a task that they can't know about, but you can kind of see where they are just with that question. Have you heard of this? Right.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time learning about that part of the business, that part of our lives, what motivates people, what will help them make a decision, what will hinder them making a decision.
Do you think that this is not a rhetorical question, I really am curious. Yeah. Do you think that your understanding of sort of human behavior at this point, and you studied it, we're all a part of it, but being a part of something and studying it is very different, right? Is it now intuitive for you to have an understanding and react in a way that says, listen, I understand this person's fears, I understand their hesitations, I understand their doubts, that I'm going to be able to talk to them in such a way that by the time we're done, they're going to say, okay, I trust you now.
Yeah, I would like to think so. And again, this is, me, I don't like to pat myself on the back, but yeah, I think that
I wouldn't have you on the show if you were not doing a good job. So,
no, and I appreciate that,
yeah.
But
you're allowed to pat yourself on the back because
humble confidence, right?
Right. Yeah. Let me go back though. I want to challenge something I think that's interesting about the industry, and I hope that people are leaning in because this could get a little spicy. Okay. And again, not a rhetorical question. I'm not really sure of the answer, which is why I'm asking it. You talked about people who were inquisitive. They really want to understand the product. They weren't like, hey, what's in it for me? Am I right or wrong? And I'm both all the time, that there are people in the industry that can just get it and find it and push it through and sell it. Mm-hmm. And they can do really, really, really well doing that. really essentially just, not that it's hurting the client, but they will find a way to sell it if it's profitable enough for them. And then there's another group that will also be able to sell it, but they'll sell it in a different way. They'll provide it in a different way. Are those two groups the most successful groups?
I think it depends on their definition of success. And
well, sure, yes, but yeah, first group is, I want to sell the crap out of this thing because, oh my gosh, Nate, that's good money. And the other is, well, if it's the right fit, then I'll sell a lot of them, right? But I think it's easy to say, hey, if you always look for the best thing for your customer, you'll always rise to the top. Well, I hope that to be true, but at the same time, there's other people who just go, I'm just going to sell whatever the highest commission thing is, and I sleep fine at night, right?
Well, here in the Milwaukee area, we have a perfect example of that.
What's that?
I'm going to share the firm name, but there's a company here that's an insurance company that is, I think, near and dear to Sten's heart, because he spent some time there. Yeah, I mean, their whole philosophy is sell more, sell more, sell more. So when we talk about the average path, if you can sell 100 lives, you can sell 200 lives. If you can sell 200 lives, you can sell 400 lives. So just
the answer to every problem is more.
Correct. And I think that can be successful if we measure success in dollars to the advisor. I think where you see the synergistic effect of success is when the advisor and the client are on the same page and there's a product involved or a solution involved, or there's a team, a partnership involved. And that's where, back to the clarity, confidence, and trust. I think that's what that latter advisor you're talking about thrives in. And the former advisor always thinks about their pocket. And I'm going to give my father-in-law credit. When I was new in this business, one of the things he said, and he's a business owner, was that if you think with your pocket, it'll stay empty. But if you think with your clients, yours will take care of itself.
Interesting.
And literally every day that goes through my brain.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as a Christian, there's a whole lot of truth in, if you want to, and I've heard that message where, when you're feeling down, you're feeling like things aren't going really well, the solution to that is to go serve other people. It's not to go fix yourself. You know what I mean?
Totally agree. Yep.
So it's that counterintuitive. If I go help other people, then what do you know? I get taken care of at the same time. Let me ask you specifically about the shift in growth in your business from wholesaler to advisor. And so you felt confident enough in ideas. When did you decide, or what was your progression of, hey, I'm going to put a price on, like, was it from the very beginning that you said, hey, if you want to work with me, yeah, you can buy this policy and yeah, you can invest money and I get a percentage of that. But if you're going to work with me, there's going to be a fee involved. What's been your progression of that? And give us the cliff notes, and then let's talk about where you're at today.
Yeah.
But where did that come from? How long have you been doing that?
So I'm celebrating 3 years at my current broker-dealer on February 1st. And I came here with that in mind, that I wanted to be able to offer my services in more than one cost structure or investment structure.
So only 3 years specifically of this.
Correct. But I'd really only started actually charging the financial planning fee January 1st. And part of it was because even though I knew that was what I wanted to do, I didn't have the confidence in myself yet to be able to quantify what the value actually is, what the deliverables are, what the process or the what are you actually
buying, right? Yeah. I mean, when someone buys a ticket, as an example, I don't know, I've never been to Disneyland or Disney World, but people who have been would say, oh yeah, it costs this much. And I'd go, why? Like, oh, you haven't experienced it. So that's why you don't understand the value of the cost, right?
Yep.
And so on your end, metaphorically, but also factually, like, you don't want to write a check you can't cash, right? Meaning, again, showing our age for people who used to write checks. Shout out to people who remember what checks are. But you don't want to sell something that you're not clear on the deliverable, which sounds really simple, but like that happens a lot at How to Charge Live. People are like, hey, listen, this sounds great charging somebody $8,000 to sit across the table and talk to them, but like, what am I giving them? Right. So really it's been, just, not that long that you've said, hey, I feel confident enough in this process now. You were confident enough in your ideas, it sounds like, but you weren't confident enough in packaging them in order to sell them. Is that fair?
I think that's very fair. I also didn't lead with the value. I didn't lead with, look, I'm going to give you a couple concepts that you can take with you and use no matter what. And here are a couple specific strategies we might explore, right? I didn't lead like that. I led with, oh yeah, we can do tax loss harvesting, and there's a manager that does that, or there's, this insurance company does this and this, so it's still very product oriented. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the average path. That's what the industry kind of forces on us. And honestly, it took some very intentional conversations with my compliance department, with my manager, with the team that I work with.
What do you mean by intentional? Like, is that just that like you got more clear on the value you're adding? Like, what does that look like? Is it just asking for permission, or is it saying, hey, I'm going to do this? How do we find a way to do it? What does that look like for someone who's worried?
It was, hey, I want to do this. What steps do we need to take to make sure that this is a smooth process and meaningful process for the client?
Yeah. Stan says, approach compliance first with just gentleness and humility, because they're not used to either one of those. Meaning a lot of advisors come at them with hubris and overconfidence, and not being gentle, right? They're used to sort of just getting yelled at, or told you're slowing me down or you're screwing up my business or whatever.
Sales prevention department.
Right. Sales prevention. Right. But he says, hey, how can we make this happen, together? Right. Like, I'm going to do this. How can we make it happen?
Yep. And that was the conversation we had. And like I said, it was a very intentional conversation. Ultimately, so our firm had one way of doing fee for advice.
What was it?
It was an annual 12-month commitment. There was one form you could only pay from an internal account.
Yeah.
And we're actually in the process of, now I can do 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or 9 month or 12 month. Mm-hmm. I can do a business consulting relationship or a personal consulting relationship. And we're actually, my understanding is that we can actually have the client pay with an external ACH or check. But also, we're fingers crossed that we might actually be able to do credit card as well for that cost as well. And that kind of came about because there was another advisor in California, I believe, who was having a similar conversation at the same time. We both work with business owners. Yeah. And like, I had one business owner say, hey, can I use my Amex Platinum?
Yeah.
The points, right? Okay, great. That's awesome.
Sure. Yeah.
We might actually be able to do that in the near future here, which it reduces the barriers to be able to.
So your new sales pitch is free flight with every financial plan.
Yeah, right.
You just have to use the right.
Yeah. I should talk to Amex and see if I can
free upgrade. Right. You just have little Amex pamphlets, brochures at your desk.
Yeah.
Fill one of these out, So it's, that obviously is going well. I want to connect with those who are listening in this regard. A lot of people listen to the show. They are charging for their advice, or they're at the beginning of it. What has brought you the most confidence in your journey of charging for advice? What would you say is, for those who go, well, I'm starting and I'm dipping my toe in it, I'm kind of waiting, like, what's the thing that will inject the most confidence in an advisor if they can get to it? What is that thing?
Honestly, I would say it's practice.
Practice what?
Practice your ability to quantify the value. And that there's we could do a whole podcast just on that.
We've done other episodes for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll keep doing more. Yeah.
Go see episode XXX.
There you go.
Yeah. No, but I think practice makes perfect, but practice with people who are going to give you honest feedback. So that's first and foremost, but I think it comes back to being intentional about scheduling as well. And scheduling the time to practice, scheduling the time to meet with idea partners, scheduling the time to do the tasks that get you to the confidence that you need to be able to do that, to offer that service. And that's what it took for me. So I've been a member since November of last year, and I spent all of November and all of December intentionally scheduling time to watch the podcast, listen to the episodes, take notes, challenge myself, practice my presentations, meet with my idea partners, get rid of some idea partners, get some new idea partners. but basically get rid of the, the mental blocks that I had to be able to say confidently, hey, we can do this, this, and this, and we're just scratching the surface here, but we might be able to save you X number of dollars in taxes this year alone.
Yeah.
How does that sound? Here's what the engagement looks like. This or this, these are the two options as far as how we can move forward. But yeah, it's that time blocking and intentional scheduling that's kind of made the best procedural impact for me.
What does it feel like when you share these ideas that are just ideas? They're not promises, they're not life insurance contracts. They're ideas, they're strategies. What is it like to present those in a meeting for the first time with a prospect? And by the end of that meeting, they're excited. I mean, they genuinely are like, let's go. Right? What's that like?
The first time I did it, it was like going on a first date. It's like standing up at the altar before the
I haven't done that in a while, right?
On the aisle.
Yeah.
Right. The first time you do it, it was nerve wracking. And it was somebody that I know that I've worked with for years, and just said, hey, look, we've had some changes and we're just moving in a slightly different direction. We can still work together the way we have, but I wanted to make sure you understand these new things that we may be able to do. And that opened up a whole new
conversation.
World.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
That's a conversation. Everyone, make sure you catch that. This is someone that you had been working with or knew how you were working, and you pivot. It's one of the most common questions that we get, other than how do I get clients, how do I get prospects, right? Is how do I transition or move someone that I've had an existing relationship with into a financial planning relationship? And I love that tone of, hey, I'm a business owner. I'm always continuing to develop and grow my business, right? For Elon Musk, that means a cyber truck, right? For you, that means, hey, I offer planning now. There's some other options we have. And when you put it in that context, it's like, oh, okay, you have something new to offer. That makes sense, right?
Yep.
So what's it like when that happens? What does it look like?
So I kind of gave that preamble, and he was like, yeah, tell me more. That was kind of the natural reaction. And I took some of the facts that I already knew about him. 2 kids, 12 and 15 years old, owns his business. All I'm doing is managing a small portion of his assets. I just said, hey, not for nothing, but did you know you could pay your kids? He's like, no, I've heard about this, but tell me about it. So we did, got the whiteboard out, and I used my iPad because we were at a restaurant. And by the end of just that example, you could see he took out his notepad and he started taking notes, and you can see the body language. He kind of leans in.
Yeah.
He's like, what else? Tell me about what else. What other ideas you got?
Yeah.
He's in real estate. He owns the business he owns the building that his business is in. So we talked about cost segregation. We talked about a few other ideas. And I think the light bulb went off when it wasn't about another mutual fund or a stock or an annuity or a life insurance policy. When it was about ideas, and I kind of positioned myself as the general manager of his team.
Yeah.
That's when the light bulb went off. And he's paying me a $6,000 fee to do a 3-month engagement with a financial plan at the end. Never would have had that opportunity to explore any of his other assets, let alone, provide that value for him.
Yeah.
We just started a cost segregation study, et cetera, et cetera. So it's already progressed to a point where he's already seeing value, far in excess of the $6,000.
Well, yeah, you would hope. Yeah. Right. So I think what's interesting too, I don't know if this is a nuance. I don't know how many people picked up on what Nate said there, but the gentleman said, yeah, I've heard about that, but like people, this is what's so interesting. One of the other very common questions we get is like, what are some more killer ideas? Listen, there's some really good planning ideas out there that maybe people haven't heard of, but even the ones they have heard of, right? Like if you want to get healthy, it's like, what's the killer idea? Like, I don't know, eat better, exercise, now they've got some drugs you can inject apparently, but beyond those, it's not new, Like, don't sit at your desk all day. I mean, try to be happier. That's good for you. Like, meaning, but there's this implementation gap.
Right.
And that's what advisors would always say. Like, people could go to this on their own, but they don't. And so what's your job? Your job is help people implement. And so don't put the excuse in front of you that, oh, they probably already know this. Well, then that's okay. What else do you have?
What's the worst that could happen? And I kind of, if I have an idea that somebody has an advisor, I know they have another advisor, or they have a CPA, or I always kind of, disarm that or diffuse that up front. I'm sure your other advisors already mentioned this, but
that's cold,
you're going to love this idea.
Mate. That's cold. Throwing people under the bus right and left. Right. No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm gonna be that harsh. Maybe your advisors told you this, if they're worth, 2 pennies, but yeah. No, that's great, man. That's great. So let's talk about, I want to end with this, which is that, well, first, if you don't mind sharing, like, kind of what's your average fee range looking like now? And then what do you feel like your potential is moving forward as you grow and scale your business?
So year to date, I've brought on 7 new planning clients.
This month?
Yeah, this month. $69,000.
Year to date, it's only been a month. So
yeah.
Right.
Dry January.
Yeah.
But yeah, 7 new planning clients, $69,000 in fees. 6 of the 7 are 3-month engagements. And then the 7th one is a 6-month engagement because there's a larger project.
What's the fee
involved? So, and it's already led to about $3.5 million in net new assets, year to date. So this year, my goal is 12 new planning clients. And the reason it's 12, the reason it's not more is because of capacity. So I know and I'm working with you guys in my team here on, kind of expanding that, right sizing roles, bringing on a new person. But this year it's 12. I think we'll probably be able to exceed that, but that's my goal this year. What's
your minimum fee?
$6,000.
And what's the most you would think, hey, I'm willing to take you on at that without you treating me like I'm your employee? What's your max that you feel like you would be able to substantiate?
So I have one client that's at 24,000. Anything beyond that, right now, I don't know that I would be able to feel comfortable delivering on that.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. Well, but here's what I want to end on. And you mentioned this earlier, so we'll spend just a couple minutes on it. Something that I think that, I know you do well is, I don't know if it's all the time, but most of the time, you don't give yourself a task without giving it a time. This is very simple. And, but most people don't do this, right? So tell us what that is and how it helps, and then we'll wrap up.
As far as time blocking and making sure. Yeah. I mean, so I used to operate in a very inefficient task oriented manner. And, I had the to-do list just like everybody else. And the first thing we do when we have a to-do list is look for the most pleasant tasks, or the ones that are going to make us the most money.
Preach it. Yeah.
And I don't remember who said it, what book it came from, but this whole idea of eating the frog, look for the most unpleasant task and do that one first, because then everything else is better. Started that kind of transition. What did it for me was that from September through November, I kept track of every minute that I worked.
Oofta.
Literally every minute. And then I made a note if it was during market hours or after market hours, or outside of market hours. And I found that about 40% of my hours worked were outside of regular market hours. And that was kind of disgusted me to think that.
What does that clarify for me though?
Yeah.
Maybe others know, but why did that hurt so much?
Because that's time that I should be spending with my family. That's time that I should be spending on myself at the gym or hiking or, doing things that I enjoy, friends, family, etc. For the most part.
40% of your time was.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's because, again, I'm bolstering my staff so that can help with that stuff. But what I found was that there was no way I was ever going to be able to bring somebody on board or level up one of my current teammates, if I didn't have a system and a process in place, if I didn't have discipline in place. So I started time blocking general tasks about 2 years ago, and then really got into it when I kind of saw the numbers from my time tracking September through November last year.
Give us a general definition of time blocking. I mean, it sounds simple, but what is it?
Send an email to Andy. Instead of putting it on a Post-it that's going to live on a Post-it and you're going to move it 6 times and rewrite it 3 or 4 times, just put it in the calendar. Today, 3:00, 5 minutes, send email to Andy. And now if it's there, if it's on the calendar already, nobody else can impinge on your time.
Right.
Right. Nobody can schedule a Calendly meeting with you.
Let me push back on that. Why not just do it in that moment?
Sometimes you have to, but at the same time, email is somebody else's agenda. So if it's not a fire, if it's not an emergency, and that's just an example.
I was thinking of you have that thought and you're driving in your car. So that's not a good time to send an email to Andy, right?
That too. Yeah. Voice
that, right. Yeah.
And it's super simple to do it with voice controls now. But I have 2 times a day that I respond to emails. And I tell people now, like, I'm very open. Hey, from 11:30 to 12 and then 4:30 to 5, that's when I reply to emails. I'll get back to you today, but it will be during one of those windows. If you have an emergency, here's who you call.
How is that? Has it made anybody mad?
It's upset a couple of people, but guess what? I don't want to work with those people anyway. If they're going to be mad because I don't get back to them immediately about an email, if it's not an emergency, if I get back to them 3 hours later, then I'm not valuing my time. Like, would you expect your doctor to call you back immediately? Maybe the office.
I mean, I expect 911 to pick up the phone, but other than that, people got lives, right?
Exactly.
So my emergency is not their emergency, right?
Right.
Unless it's 911 and then, pick up the phone. It's your job.
But also I have people to cover those. Like I have my 911 coverage.
Yeah.
This is somebody saying, hey, I hurt my elbow. You got to call me right now. Well,
yeah. I found that to be true as well. And I appreciate that. And I hope that there's a lot of takeaways people have from our conversation, but I really hope that one of them, there's, life is just a lot of very small decisions. Sometimes we got to make some big ones, but most of our life is a series of very small decisions. And the decision to do something in that moment or do it later, or to drop it all together and say, I'm not going to do it. It's not that important to me. Whether that's working out, whether that's what time you wake up, the books you read, what we, medicate ourselves with. We make so many decisions. And I think that, time blocking essentially says, I'm going to take responsibility for how I spend my time instead of letting the tyranny of the urgent, beat me up to where at the end of the day, I look back at my schedule and it doesn't look like I was that busy. Yet I was busy all day, and yet I feel like I've done nothing.
Yeah, busy is the new stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you busy or are you productive?
Yeah.
The other, if I could share one other thing, the other way it's helped is personally, honestly. So Tuesday and Thursdays I have blocked out for family. So from 5 p.m. on, it's on my calendar. I don't put anything on those times because that's family time.
Yeah. What was before? You were working?
It just wasn't blocked out. So there would be times that, like, I'd be invited to a dinner, or, we'd want to go to a baseball game or something like that. And they would, the business would override whatever would happen. But now my wife and I, we've agreed that if we're going to do something as a family, we have Tuesdays and Thursdays at our disposal now. So there's no question that if she books something on a Tuesday, I don't have a conflict. We don't have to ask. Yeah.
And that's really the blessing of guardrails, is it protects you from getting off course. And it's a friendly reminder. Like, you could go off course if you want to, but it's going to be painful. It creates a safe space for you to operate, without regret. And, and I think the fundamental problem for those who are listening and for anyone who's an advisor is there's always more. Right? It's not like the factory shut down. No, you could always turn it back on. You can always, because you are the machine, right? And so, that's the temptation, right? And so it's time blocking is telling yourself what to do later now. And so when later comes, you go, oh, this is what I'm doing, instead of what do I feel or what's someone else's agenda. And, yeah. And generally the other thing is you're tricking yourself to obey a command, and you're making those decisions, those commands in a stronger period of time than later when you're weak.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. And it's, I don't know if you've had these situations. I have a few times where someone asks for an appointment. I'm like, this is my favorite one, actually. Oh, well, I'm booked up during that time. I already have an appointment, and my appointment is to go watch a movie.
Great.
But I don't tell them, I'm going to go watch a movie because they'll like judge that. But if I'm booked, I have an appointment.
I always think about what a doctor would say. If you called a doctor and said, hey, I'd like to come in for a physical on Tuesday, right? But the doctor's in Tahiti or whatever. They're not going to say, oh, I'm on vacation. I'm in Tahiti. They say, oh, I'm booked. Right? It's all about the messaging. It's not, they don't need to know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm already helping somebody at that point.
Yeah. And that person happens to be me. So themselves, right? Which is fine. Yeah. Well, Nate, thank you for your story, and way to go. And I have a hunch you're going to end up with more than 12, whether you like it or not. Because here's my hunch is I think that you're going to get it figured out and find a way to scale that. And again, more is not always the right answer. But I'm confident you're going to serve whoever you end up getting as a client very well. And I appreciate you sharing your story. And thanks for being a part of our EN community. Thanks for being part of How to Charge Live. I'm glad that it paid for itself, and more. So thanks for your time today.
No, and thank you guys for creating the community. It's definitely helped put words to the feelings that and the thoughts that I had prior to being able to do this confidently. So, yeah, thank you guys very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for your time, my friend.
Yep, absolutely. Have a good one.